Hello! Today's stories come from r/entitled people. We've got 3 stories today. First up, Karen dresses exactly like the bride and stands with the bride in every picture. First of all, a little background. I'm from a country where the bride chooses a few dresses, some traditional dresses, and a modern white wedding dress. We usually have the bride change every once in a while. Everyone cheers for her, and she gets pictures and videos taken of her by her photographer and videographer. Now, Karen, who was the bride's cousin and had insight on the dresses the bride chose, she has a room for her preparations similar to the bride's. She got herself a bridesmaid in someone else's wedding. She wore matching clothes to the bride's and even some of the same dresses, but better quality and with extra jewelry. She didn't stop at this. In our weddings, when the bride comes out of the dressing room, she has her bridesmaids walk her to the lounge where the wedding is taking place. And everyone celebrates. I can't find a better term in English, but they celebrate her dresses, her looks, and basically, she's the main center of attention. Karen comes out each time with her own bridesmaid and walks side by side with the bride, who looked very uncomfortable. And she just shows off and tries to get the videographer to focus on her and the photographer to take pictures of her with the bride's mother and with the bride. When asked why she was doing this, Karen answers, "Because I'm a bride too. I got married 5 months ago. I'm still a bride, and this is my day as much as it is hers." I wish someone kicked her out, but it's a bad omen to kick a relative from your wedding in our culture. So she just continued her BS until time came for the white wedding dress, where she surprisingly didn't wear one and chose to wear a normal wedding guest dress. Wow, this seems way over the top in terms of accommodating a guest. Another family member really should have stepped in, maybe the bride's aunt, so the bride didn't have to say anything or feel super awkward on her big day. The comments included some additional details from OP. Let's check them out. One person said, "Bad omen or not, she should be de facto kicked out of the family after such a narcissistic move. You didn't describe much of the reaction of the other guests, so I assume nobody really cared? What a piece of work." OP replied, "People were making comments, taking pictures on their phones, and looked very annoyed, so it's fair to say we all agreed she's an entitled pile of crap. But no action from anyone. Even the bride's and groom's family didn't do anything except instructing the videographer to focus on the bride only. I forgot to mention, Karen is a little on the rich side, so that might be why nobody dared say a thing. But I don't really know." Someone else said, "It's called the wine glass solution. Someone, usually the maid of honor, will fill up a glass of red wine. They will then trip and spill said wine all down Karen. I mean, other woman's dress. Apologies will fly, but either they, the moron, will have to change dresses or leave." I Am Medina asked, "Are you maybe from North Africa? Where I live, I've heard some stories similar to what happened here, as some women still consider themselves as brides even though they've been married for months. Bride is also the common name people use here to call the daughter in law." OP replied, "Yes, I am. I know we refer to the daughter in law as a bride, as in, but we say it differently when we mean an actual bride. You know what I mean? She meant she's actually a bride, like it's her wedding too. Did all Tasdira and stuff like the bride." Our next story is, "Woman thought using turn signal gave her right of way." I used to work as a personal line auto insurance adjuster. One of the hardest parts of the job was explaining liability to people. One day, I got a call from someone who hit zero to speak to someone else because she wanted answers right away. Just some backstory. This accident happened in New York State on the thruway, and based on the police report and statements, it took me a while to review because she kept yelling at me and finally had to put her on hold. We were in the left lane, she was in the middle lane, and a car that was insured by State Farm, she had Geico, was behind our drive. She changed lanes without yielding. Our driver tried to avoid by braking but hit her in the door, and the guy behind us rear-ended us even though he braked as well. Now, in New York, we have comparative negligence, which means sometimes drivers can share liability for the accident. All 3 insurance companies agreed that our driver was 0% for any damage on the cars. They also agreed that she and the other driver shared 50% liability each for our damages, but were 100% liable for their own damages. A fair ruling. So, Geico was going to pay for half of our damages, and State Farm was going to pay for half of our damages. And both she and the State Farm driver would either have to pay out of pocket for their cars or use their collision coverage. I went over the loss facts with her, and she kept arguing that she didn't agree with us or what Geico, her own insurance, that told her she was at fault, said, even though she was ticketed. She tried to convince me that she had in fact completed her lane change when we hit her. I asked her, "So, why do these damages photos show that you have damage on your front driver's side door and not the rear of the car?" She replied, "Your driver went onto the shoulder and hit me. Why do I see photos taken at the scene that show the shoulder is not even wide enough for one car, and that after the accident, your car was not fully in the lane, but more partially in it? Well, either way, I was in it, so I should have right of way. Didn't you see our driver before your lane change? I had my turn signal on, and he should have seen that." No, the State Farm driver who was behind us claims he didn't see her signal before trying to change lanes in the report. She continues to argue with me and saying over and over again, "But I had my turn signal on." Finally snapping, after about 20 to 30 minutes of dealing with her, "Ma'am, the turn signal is not some magical device that makes all the traffic in the other lane stop so you can move over. You still have to check to make sure it is safe, and you still have to yield to the traffic that is there." She goes on a rant about how dare I imply she doesn't know how to drive. She is 22 years old and has been driving for 6 years, and then pulls the Karen card of demanding to speak to my supervisor. I pretend to be transferring the call and hang up on her. I message her assigned claim handler, feeling a bit guilty for upsetting her, and explained what happened. He types in LOL and tells me how he had actually called her back and left her a message while I was on the phone with her. I tell him about my rant about the turn signal, and he asks if I am for real. He tells me to not note the claim, and she is calling him back right now, so let him deal with her and not to worry, he has her back. He later calls me on Teams to tell me what happened. She called him back, ranting and demanding to speak to my supervisor, but she couldn't even remember my name. He feigned ignorance and went over liability with her, and she continued to demand to speak to his supervisor and insisted she was not in the wrong because she had used her signal before moving into our lane. He transferred the call, and his supervisor came by his desk later and explained he had finally calmed her down and gotten her off the phone, and she understood they were not budging. He also told him that he doesn't know who that person was that told her a turn signal is not some magical device that stops the traffic for you, but if ever found out who it was, to tell them thank you for saying to her what I was thinking the whole time I was on the phone with her. Ha! Only a Karen would think a signal gives her free rein. It's a beautiful thing when frontline staff don't bite their tongue, say what everyone wants to say to a Karen, and then don't get reprimanded for it. From this short story, sounds like a pretty great team of colleagues who have one another's backs. Let's check out some comments from people who know a number of bad drivers in their own lives. Montana Purple Mountain shared, "I knew someone who grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area who honestly thought that when you merge onto the freeway, you have the right of way over the vehicle already driving in the lane you have to merge into. Come to think about it, she was about 22 also. The rest of us quickly disabused her of that notion. Maybe this needs to be a question on every state's driver's license test. Every version of said test should have this question. Edit to add that I love the idea of a turn signal being a magical device that makes other vehicles stop for you." Mountain Dream said, "It's unfortunate, but seems there are a lot that think their blinker gives them right of way. Even saw a rich guy in a supercar cut off a marked police car. Even yelled at the cops, 'I had my blinker on, that gives me the right of way.' Guy was arrested. Don't know the outcome." Someone replied, "There's no definition of a good outcome for driving when an arrest is involved. Even if you clear it up later, it's automatically bad." Counterfeit 1187 said, "I would have pulled up the driver handbook in her state and would have read her the switching lanes section. She would have popped a vein." The Truth Seeker replied, "I believe in her case it's spelled vain, VAIN, because she's more important in her car than everyone else." Our third story is, "House full of Karens wants to tear up a home because they are getting evicted." I'm a 27-year-old female and my husband is 29. Finally, after 3 years, we're able to purchase a home here in the Northwest of the United States. Please excuse grammatical errors. English is not my first language, and I'm on mobile. We found the home of our dreams, but it was tenant occupied with their lease expiring. The homeowner was getting older and wanted to sell the home instead of renting it. The tenants were given an 18-month notice to vacate so he could list it, unless they wanted to purchase it from him for $50,000 in monthly payments. They stated they didn't want the responsibility of owning and fixing a home. They are more comfortable with renting. They rented the home from him for 15 years, and they were offered the home for 1/8 the price we paid for it and a 12th the value. Well, after 18 months, he listed, and we went under contract, giving 4 months till closing. Two of the five roommates left, and the other three were a couple and their 21-year-old daughter. The inspector came after giving them a 1 week notice, and they caused nothing but havoc. They trashed the fireplace and entire home, ruined the HVAC, stained the floors, put holes in the carpet and walls, and left the garden hose on so water got in the crawl space under the home. It was a mess, but the inspector noted everything. Now comes the fun part. The tenants refused to pay their utilities and asked if the homeowner would extend their lease since it was their daughter's childhood home. The homeowner refused and showed them the contract and the damages. They complained that they should have been given the home since they rented so long, but the homeowner said tough noodles. The tenant couple vacated when the homeowner showed the eviction documents, but left their 21-year-old daughter. She requested that when we purchased the home, if we could be her roommates and put her on the title. We laughed and said no. She blamed us, stating we took her home from her and it's our fault she has to leave. I sympathized and said, we understood it was her childhood home, but y'all had every opportunity to purchase it and didn't. She stated to the homeowner that she would fight the Veterans Affairs for our home loan and make us pay for her mortgage since as veterans, we owe it to her. We ignored it. After a few weeks, 1 month before closing to be exact, the appraiser and inspector came by and she barricaded herself in the master bedroom. After being given $50 from the homeowner, she left the home for the day and it was a mess. Clothes and trash piled everywhere, pizza boxes stacked to the ceiling, and the stench of rotting food made the inspector have to put on his mask. They finished their job and the homeowner had replaced and repaired everything on the list, $52,000 worth, except inside the master bedroom. The week before closing, the last tenant left. Come to find out, she already had another apartment for months but just wanted to trash the place so we would back out. The homeowner hired professional cleaners and it took 4 days to clean and sanitize that room. We just got the keys and discovered that the last tenant had ripped drywall off in the master bathroom, put screws down the garbage disposal, and crushed the garage door opener when the previous homeowner reset the code. She left us a note that said she expects us to give her the security deposit amount as compensation when the previous homeowner gave her parents it back in full to get them to leave. Edit. Fixed a few grammatical errors, sorry, I'm trying, and adding to context. The previous owner did $52,000 of repairs and renovations, including new HVAC and AC, new floors, paint, roof repaired, house painted, new bathrooms, new countertops, appliances, washer dryer, new electrical wiring throughout the house, new garage insulation, and new drywall throughout the entire garage, new garage door, new windows, etc. There are a few things left, but it isn't too bad considering all the repairs are less than a year old. Oh my gosh, I can't even. It's too bad OP and her husband had to deal with this, but can we please take a moment to acknowledge the homeowner? I'm picturing a nice little old man who, out of the goodness of his heart, offered these Karens a super smoking deal on this house. And not only did they decline, they spit in his face. This is shocking. OP shares more detail about the crazy entitlement of these people in the comments. Someone said, surprised the owner's insurance didn't try to file a police report for vandalism against the tenants, especially if they remained after their rental agreement was up. I personally would have looked to suing them for the damages. Ruining the crawl space and subfloor could cause the whole house to need large portions rebuilt or condemned, OP replied. The previous owner dried it up and the inspector verified that no water damage was done. The previous homeowner paid $52,000 for repairs and renovations. Heartless Angel said, this is exactly why I worry about buying foreclosures. Like, how can these people feel justified in this? Hopefully, their next home gets robbed and stripped. OP replied, I don't wish harm on anyone, only that they step on a Lego. In reply to only that they step on a Lego, Crystal Cat 420 said, at 2 a.m., on their way to the bathroom with a full bladder. Sweet Tangerine said, that's so disgusting. I once knew a lady who lost her home to foreclosure, didn't pay mortgage for 6 months, and is then stunned that she lost her house. As they were leaving, she destroyed all of the kitchen cabinets, smashed 100 sheets of plate glass, X was a glass installer, in the garage, and allowed her 2 children to smear feces over all the walls. because she was special. Sleepy Hollow 2013 replied, "At that point, is it easier to repair or replace it all or just burn it and start over?" Sweet Tangerine replied, "Some flippers bought it and took the insides down to the studs. Had to replace the wood floors also because she let her kids go crazy." If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.